Ever been in a boardroom thinking, how did I get here? You're absolutely not alone. So today on ZZ Exchange, we're talking imposter syndrome, why it shows up, what it is, and kind of what to do about it. So welcome to ZZ Exchange. Here we have conversations that connect real leadership with real life. Hi, I'm Ainsley. I'm an executive coach and I'm the founder of Zen Zero. Every episode, we dive into the messy, meaningful side of growth with leaders and change makers. And today, I'm joined by the very awesome Jeff Jewell, who is a senior finance leader and an executive coach himself, who's been in a lot of those rooms where imposter syndrome just loves to whisper. So, hi, Jeff. Welcome to Zen Zero Exchange.
Hi, Ainsley. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here. And it's our first ZZ Exchange. So you are our inaugural guest, which I love.
Well, the bar is going to be set either high or low, one way or the other, for the next guest.
Very high, very high. I love it. So I have a few questions to get into with you. And I guess the first one is like when you think about imposter syndrome at kind of a leadership level, because you're a senior finance leader, what does it look like and kind of how does it show up for you or for your clients?
Yeah, so I will first say it has shown up for me throughout my career. And, for a long time, I didn't understand what it was. And, I felt like it was just a signal, if you will, that I didn't belong in those places, in those rooms. But what I have found over time with myself and with clients is it is more of a signal of, growth than it is don't belong. And is also a signal of doing something important. Because usually where it shows up for me, and I know for clients, is in some type of phase of growth, whether that's, being in the boardroom or a new promotion or, it's something new, with your business or something like that. It's a phase of growth that is uncomfortable, but it is also accompanied by something that's important to you. So that imposter syndrome shows up because you haven't done it before and it's important to you. So it's really kind of a signal that you're on the right track, I think, more so than it is, a signal to shy away from whatever wherever the situation that's showing up. But it takes a while to learn that, frankly.
Oh, for sure. And, I think even for me as when I was a corporate leader, walking into boardrooms that were typically full of men as well, like just, feeling like, oh, do I belong here? Are they going to listen? Is what I have to say got value and kind of weight to it? But like you said, I really like that it's a signal that you're in the right place and it's pushing you to grow. But I think when you've been good at something, being put in that uncomfortable situation, it's scary. It like brings up a lot of different feelings, which are hard to wrap your head around as well.
Yeah, they are because, I would say it almost always shows up in high achievers where, folks that are constantly looking to better themselves in some way. They like to learn, like to better themselves. Sometimes they can have perfectionist tendencies, even if you will. And so that's, that type of personality, it really shows up. But again, it's that signal, so I think when I think about it, when I think about how it shows up for folks, when I'm working with somebody, that awareness comes first, meaning even being aware it's happening, maybe why it's happening, because a lot of folks have that anxiety, have that feeling they don't belong and don't, necessarily connect it to they're doing something new or they're in a position or period of growth. So when you can start connecting it and building that awareness, then you can start seeing the patterns a little better and then figuring out ways to move forward through those, through those episodes.
Well, I think, yeah, it's like what you're saying, you've got to name it, right? Like, how am I feeling? Because once you name it, it actually gets less scary. And
Yeah.
then you can sort of think about it and then prepare yourself for it. And like for you, have you found that imposter syndrome, like that it shows up differently in men versus women, like just in your overall experience?
Here's what I would say. I think, and again, this is not scientific. This is probably this is anecdotal in my experience, but I think it maybe shows up for both men and women, but it's expressed differently. meaning
Yeah.
a lot of times they'll just, typically, and obviously this is not always the case, women tend to then become more timid and more quiet, and men sometimes actually become louder or,
The more confident voice
yeah,
in the
yeah,
room.
it's like that almost sometimes that arrogance, that arrogance or that kind of thing comes out, or yeah, it's just kind of that insecurity comes out in different ways. But I do see how it manifests a little different. But again, not scientific, just anecdotally, but just seeing that over time, I think it can, you know,
Yeah.
manifest different for men and women.
And I think it's kind of that thing in you too, like whether or not you're just going to lean into that kind of like fear and reframe it as excitement, or
Hmm.
that you've got this and do it, or if you just shy away altogether,
Yeah.
right? And I think what's also fascinating, like with the different leaders and founders that I chat to, and even a lot of the conversations you and I have had in the past, like even with a lot of experience, that voice still shows up, right? I've
Yeah.
spoken to like C-suite VPs who still talk about imposter syndrome, which
Hmm.
I find really fascinating. And I
Yeah.
don't know why that voice still shows up.
Here's what I say about it too. I don't think it's something, honestly, that we want to go away, because I think there's a benefit to it, and I don't mean there's a benefit to it driving you to, high levels of anxiety and pushing you away. But I think if we can learn to manage, it's almost like a superpower if we can learn to manage it, because it helps signal something, it helps signal that you're on the right path, and it also helps you pay attention, and whatever it is you're growing and learning to, right on that edge of that imposter syndrome actually propels a lot of people forward as well. But there's an edge there, or a line there, of does it propel you forward or does it hold you back, and learning how to cope with it and have it become your partner along the growth path, can really help propel you forward as well.
I really like that partner along your growth path. I don't think I've ever framed it as positively, but it's key because I think it also, imposter syndrome, some people feel the weight of it more consistently than others, but I think there's often certain moments or transitions that kind of trigger it, and that goes back to what you were earlier saying about like growth and how it's pushing you to that next big thing. So for you, because imposter syndrome is something you often coach on, like what helps the most? Like what helps your clients kind of work with it and get through it?
So I think the first thing is awareness, and when I say that, I mean they often come not understanding that they're having some type of imposter syndrome, and that self-doubt, however that shows up, and that awareness is important. And so we'll first kind of look for the patterns, and once they figure out that the patterns of that, where those that imposter syndrome really spikes, is in those growth moments, then we can go back and then start looking at the evidence. I have them look at the evidence, like, okay, you're telling yourself this story around not being able to do X, no, you don't belong here or whatever. But let's look at the evidence in your past to, is that story true, or what is the evidence that would be contrary to that story, if you will. And usually these are people that have made a lot of achievements in their life and career, and so when they can start looking at that evidence, that then can help propel them forward as well. So journaling some, but also I recommend that they not just try to work through it themselves a lot of times, but also whether it's a friend, a mentor, a coach, obviously can help you work through that, because a lot of times we are our own worst critic. And if we can have somebody that we trust, talk to us through, and who we know that will tell us the truth, and they, can support and also give us some evidence of our, achievement, that can help folks work through it as well. So, that would be where I would start, is kind of the awareness, and then, looking for the evidence that is contrary to the story we're telling ourselves.
Well, I think it's all about the stories we tell ourselves, right? And
Hmm.
sometimes we really need to reframe those. And I think you called out a really good point there too, like around mentors or like sponsors in the business as well,
Hmm.
being vulnerable enough to share with someone that you trust, potentially that's senior to you, and ask them about their experience of imposter syndrome, because I can pretty much guarantee you everybody has felt it at some point in their life. And like you said, it's like noticing the feeling, kind of naming it for what it is, and then finding ways to normalize it, like looking at the evidence or speaking to people, and then sort of the navigation and the way forward, because there is an end to it, right? It doesn't have to be like persistent throughout sort of everything, for
Right.
sure.
Right. And your
Yeah.
point that you just made was great too, because I just had somebody that I was talking to the other day that was, essentially had the feeling like, I've never, they didn't say it exactly this way, but when I told them I experienced imposter syndrome, I still do, and I have a lot in my career, they were surprised by it. So people also see, when you get to a certain stage in your career, people also see that they feel like you've got it, you've had it all figured out and got it made and all that. Well, that isn't what you just said. That none of us do. Yeah. And so I think it made this person a lot more comfortable, just me telling her some of my stories about it and realizing that, I'm later in my career than she is, but, along the same path, had those feelings and still do at times.
Absolutely. And a lot of the times too, we're comparing ourselves to others, which we're all individuals and we can't do. And I often say to people as well, right, when I speak to people maybe around fear of public speaking, I'm like, everyone in the room there watching you is cheering you on and so grateful that they're not being the person
Yeah.
having to speak to the whole room. Like no one's there to like make you fail. Everyone's there to help you grow and support you. And I think just really telling yourself that until it becomes really embedded in your kind of psyche is also so key.
Yeah, that to your point there, telling yourself like there's a lot of negative self-talk that comes along with imposter syndrome, and so it's also important to work to change that voice and change basically how you're talking to yourself and talking to yourself in a different way. And I know, I think we've talked about this before, but a lot of times if I ask somebody, what would you recommend or tell your best friend in this kind of situation? Well, their story that they would tell them is way different than they're telling themselves. I'm like, maybe, talk to yourself like you would your best friend.
Absolutely. I mean, Jeff, you and I have had that discussion when I talk to you about me talking about finance and math, right?
Yeah.
So not my strongest suit. Okay, well, I just want to be really conscious of time here, and so we're going to jump into the coach's corner.
Okay.
So I've got 3 quick fire questions for you, just to get all of your wisdom and answers to share with everyone.
All right.
So, question number 1: what does leadership mean to you today?
This question is tricky for me because it means a lot of different things, but I think more than anything, it's really caring about the people you're leading. And you have to start like with care and concern for the people, and then yes, there's a whole bunch else that goes along with it. But I think at the root of it, at the essence of it, if you don't care for the people that you're leading in some way, then it's really hard to lead them. And especially I do also think now, the time that we're in, that is more and more important for younger people coming in the workforce, even those of us that aren't so young coming in the workforce. If we feel cared about, like there's a lot that can get done if you have a leader that cares about you.
It's the psychological safety, right? And I
Yeah.
think also in a world where we're doing a lot more remote work, kindness and getting to know the human is really key to also getting the most from the team and everyone feeling kind of fulfilled. Okay, so one phrase you always come back to when you're doubting yourself.
Well, so I would say at this point in my imposter syndrome journey, it is something. It is just keep going, because I worked with, and this phrase always is in my head too. But I was on a board one time with this woman who was very accomplished, and she was like, "There's always this mucking around phase when you're doing something new, so you just kind of got to keep." Working through the muck until you can get out of it and head in the right direction. And so I think of that, and I just keep going, because where it feels messy, the way out is the way through, and you just keep going through it.
Absolutely. And I know it's a terrible saying, but just eat the elephant one leg at a time
Yep.
is
Yep.
kind of key too, right?
Yep.
With it.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, that's
Oh,
totally right. Because people get overwhelmed with whatever the big thing. So you just take one step at a time and move through
yeah.
it.
And I mean, I'll pull out all the analogies. It's like trying to boil the ocean,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
just,
I
yeah.
mean, they're cliches for a reason. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Okay, number three, a practice you would recommend to anyone feeling like an imposter this week.
I would say some reflection time, meaning at the end of your day or whenever works for you, take a few minutes just to reflect on what you've accomplished that day, that week, whatever it is, because the more we can let go of the stories of what we're not able to do and have the evidence of what we're able to do, the more that gives us confidence to be able to move forward.
Yeah, and confidence is so key.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome,
Yeah.
Jeff. Well, thank you for being the inaugural guest on ZZ Exchange. It's been super awesome having the chat with you. And, I think I'd just like to say for anyone that is watching, if you've ever felt like you don't belong, I want you to take this as total proof that you completely do. So, yeah, Jeff, any final words?
I just want to tell you thank you, Ainsley, for having me on. It's been great. It's fun to do this and have this conversation with you, and hopefully it is helpful to somebody. And I look forward to seeing all the episodes you will do going forward.
Ah, it's awesome. Yes, and the marketer in me has to say subscribe to ZZ Exchange because we're going to have a lot more real conversations on leadership, growth, the human side of work, and just the messy middle of trying to figure it all out.